Now call this workshop to order. The one item we have for discussion tonight is a facilities update for 825 Tech Center Drive. Kevin Schultz will be the presenter. Mr. Schultz, if you'd like to come up to the podium, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Mr. Chair, if I might just make a few introductory comments to explain who's here tonight. So this pertains to our project for our new City Hall slash Police Department headquarters slash senior center facility at 825 Tech Center Drive. I believe we came before the commission early on just to kind of share what the overall plans were for this. Earlier this week on Monday night, our partners at MSA Design appeared before council and showed them for the very first time the outside renderings of the building. Since you are our planning commission and you are all experts and see all of these things on a regular basis, we are anxious to hear your thoughts and opinions as to the direction that we're headed on this building. Tonight with us, we have Mr. Keith Hall from MSA Design. Keith has been the lead project manager from the MSA team on this on the project of 825 Tech Center Drive, and he actually will give the presentation tonight, although Senior Director Schultz is here to answer any additional questions in a guest starring role this evening. Thank you. And Director Blackford is Planning Commission guru. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Hall, I'll turn it over to you. If you could speak from the podium, and again,
Okay.
He's got a presentation that he needs to be,
okay, understood.
I can't click it from up there, but maybe I can do it. I can do it from up there. It should be in here anyway.
Just keep lights going on, so.
Oh.
Yeah, it's got good battery power.
Is that a pot and a kettle?
Right. Well, is this on? Hello, hello? Yeah. Well, thanks for having me here tonight. I'm very excited about presenting the building to you. We've been working with the city and the stakeholders on the city side since December on this. And I think we've arrived at a really reasonable solution for the community that we are very proud of. So I'm just going to sort of run through some things here with you guys. First thing I wanted to talk to a little bit is very early on in the design process, we identified some design goals. And these goals, what we use them for is as we make decisions, as we go through the process of design, we always come back and we ask ourselves, is it satisfying these particular goals? Some of them, let me see here. Number one, inviting and approachable. That's a given for a city public building. You want it to be inviting, you want it to be approachable, you want the community to feel like they can come here. Number two, obviously you want it to have a clear civic presence. It's important that from a city perspective that the residents see this building as a foundation of sorts for the community or even a hub for the community. Number three, community and service focus, that's a given. When they walk in the door, they're engaging with their government, and their government needs to reflect an idea of being community focused and service focused. And efficient in planning. This was a big one through the entire process. When we went through programming and back and forth and maximizing the use of the existing building and sort of trying to minimize the building additions that we're proposing to it, our square footages were blowing up. They were contracting and going back and forth as we went through the process. But we got it through a pretty rigorous process. We got it back to where our original goals were supposed to be, and even under. Or the original goal was around 140,000 square feet. Now we are sitting at about 136,000 square feet in total. Allow for future expansion. This is critical. You're making this is supposed to be a 50-year solution for the building. It's difficult to predict what's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So allowing for expansion, allowing for modifications within the existing framework of the existing building as government changes and services changes, that was very important to us as we went through the process. Safe and secure, that doesn't take a lot of explanation. That's pretty self-explanatory. meets addition and renovation goals. That's all these goals. Is it meeting our goals in totality? Meets program goals. And then another very important one was that we identified very early on was building rebranding. We wanted to have a unique identity. When you go up to 825, you are presented with a campus of buildings that all look the same, that frankly, sort of are reflective, I guess, of AEP, occupying a campus headquarters type atmosphere. So we knew we wanted to really stand out amongst those buildings and try to push our design there. And then another one was daylighting, taking advantage of daylighting in the building. No one really likes dark buildings. We always like to feel like we're connected to the outside. Daylight makes us feel better at the end of the day, and plus it also brings a level of sustainability to the project too. So as you look at the existing site, as I mentioned, it really is a campus of buildings that all were intentionally designed to look the same, that were all, they're all planned to look the same. This was very intentional at the time they did it, for a number of reasons as we can all think about. Plan, north is straight up. The airport is directly to the west. We are, as you can see, our site is pretty well paved, so it's pervious to the edges of the property for the most part. But one of the advantages of this site is that it does border a pretty heavily forested area. So that brings, we can take it, even though it's not on our property, we can take advantage of that in a lot of different ways, and it kind of softens the edges of the building at the same time. We do have 2 existing curb cuts here on the building. This curb, and they will both be maintained for the most part. This curb cut in particular, the existing parking, one of the other things we noticed as we looked at the building originally is the existing parking lot layout in front. With this curb cut coming in, it offered a drive that went directly towards the front entrance. So a vehicle could gain enough speed really coming down to penetrate the building. And so we saw that as a security issue right away. So as we started looking at a new site plan, we really started we started with the building and getting back to this rebranding, this idea of a unique identity. We saw from a cost-effective perspective, if we could really focus our efforts on the northwest facing part of the building, that would solve a lot of issues we saw with the existing building at the time. So all the light gray areas, you'll see the floor plans as I bring them up, all those light gray areas, that's all the additions to the building. The unique circumstance with the additions to the building is they were all requiring a higher ceiling level, a higher floor to floor than what the existing building was providing. The existing building has 14-foot floor to floor plates throughout the whole thing. So to put a council chambers in a 14-foot floor to floor, we'd be getting in probably close to a 9-foot ceiling, and that's just not an appropriate environment for council chambers in particular. Same with over here with the Sally Port. They require a high bay space for storage and taller vehicles and everything. The Sally Port is where the police officers bring their cars in and unload prisoners. So the 2 existing curb cuts, as I mentioned, do remain. We did add another curb cut here. The secured parking for the police is over on this side. Police primarily occupies this side of the building right here. This was intentional. So if they got a call, they can run out, get in their vehicles, and shoot straight out and get to the street. And that was from a timing perspective, just to make things easy on them. The other 2, as you come into the building here, we do have a landscape area here with some signage associated with it. That if somebody tried to drive over the curbs and everything, there's a lot of things that they need to break through to get their vehicle to even touch the building. We do have a vast amount of what I would call landscape area out here in front, which we are still working on from a design perspective, but that is even another barrier in which we will probably provide some more intuitive type stuff. The best way to describe it is the round balls outside of target. That's not what we're going to do here, but those type of barriers, concrete benches and those things tend, if we can work them in where they are, they don't jump out at you as security barriers, then they become a little more blended with the design and so forth. This parking lot here in front, that will predominantly be for public parking. And as I noted, this is the secured parking for police. And then we do have a secure line back here where we are providing secured parking for city employees. These dark lines that you see along the sides here, that is a basically covered parking where we are proposing right now to put solar arrays on top of. So city admin vehicles would be here, and then this would be all police vehicles over in this area. I'll pause here and just see if there's any questions.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So when you say secure parking, is there going to be a gate?
Yes, there will be a fence all the way around this one. And then on this one, because security is critical, we are talking about bringing a fence across and maybe down the side, just to show that there is a break between the two parking areas.
So,
But on the police, there will be a gate right here, and then we are considering a gate back here once we can get an understanding for what this back drive is going to do.
and on the employee side, it'll be electronic with a passcode or something.
Yeah, yes. And then all monitored at dispatch. So they'll be able to sit in the dispatch room and see cars pull up and either get through, or they'll have to, if they're, non-dispatch, say if they're getting a delivery and let's say FedEx needs to get back in here for some reason or another, then they can let them through at that point. Good?
Good.
All right. So I'm going to jump into the plans. The building is a 3-story building, the existing building is. Right along, if you just watch my line here, right along here and then down and over, that is the existing building. The additions are more focused towards high bay spaces. Up here we have a multi-use room for parks and recreation that will also be utilized as a rentable space for the community. Right here is council chambers, right here at the front entrance. And then over here is mostly police, and then back here in the back areas where we do need some higher bay space. There are 3 entrances to the building. The main primary entrance is here, and there's a secondary entrance to get into the senior area up here, and then there's also a secondary entrance to get into the police. So even though this is the primary entrance, and when you see the renderings, it's going to be, that's where I go to get into the building because of the way it's designed. If somebody comes in here, this is the main lobby, they will still be able to go down this corridor and get to the senior area. They will still be able to go down this corridor and get to the police. If they pick up on the fact that there is signage out here that says this is the senior side, then they can go directly in. Same with police, go directly in. And even there will be a back door here for some of the seniors who might park in the back. So once they get familiar with the building, they'll know that there's a rear entrance to come in. This over here is a basement that will basically be under this part of the building, and that's where the firing range is for the police. So that's mostly training that's going on down there. The second floor, the area in blue, is police. And then all the other areas up here to the north, that's mostly city administration. I'm not going to go through each area and what's going on there, but you can kind of see. And this is all existing building footprint that we're in here. These are single-story additions, although their height is basically a story and a half to get to the volumes that we're trying to get to. And then the third floor, city admin up here in the north, and then police over here to the west. Any questions on the plans?
Red is just circulation.
Red is primary circulation, yes.
Are all offices that the public will need to access on the first floor for the most part?
Yes. So when you come in the first floor, as I mentioned, council chambers is here, and then bill pay is over here. Municipal court is over in this area. So they can freely get to those areas off the first floor. Now, that's not to say that they won't need to go to other areas of the building, economic development, go see the mayor, she's on the 3rd floor. So somebody will have to come down and get them and then take them up in the building. And that's a security feature. All right, so this is what the existing building looks like. Again, pretty much looks like all the other buildings over there, a lot of brick, a little bit of a stone element here in the middle. And these buildings were designed in the late 90s, so they do have this little bit of a 90s kind of architecture going on with them, whatever that means. But if you've been around as long as I have, you can look at it and say, okay, that's 90s architecture. We really wanted to significantly change this because when you look at this facade and then you look at the AEP facade right next door to it, the buildings are essentially identical at the end of the day. So if I'm an architect working for somebody else and I'm trying to bring plans up for review and so forth to submit them, wanted this building to really have its own unique identity so that I know where it can go, and that also applies to your residents. And then this is what we're proposing. If you remember, I mentioned there were 3 entrances to the building, the primary entrance being here in the corner of the 2 wings. Senior Center over here, and then police over here. We really wanted the building to have a civic presence, and so we really sort of focused in on bringing stone into the architecture in a big way. Stone is shows that there's a foundation, it's permanent, and it has a big presence. So bookending the building with 2 prominent stone features started to have a lot of appeal to us. And then from a transparency perspective, really trying to open this up. So that's the welcoming part. We're not behind all these closed walls, it's open, and it's welcoming and, come in. This also allows for, if you remember, natural light, daylighting, to flood the building. And so we saw that as an advantage also. And as you get up close to the building, one of the things that we focused on with the first floor is this idea of connecting the inside to the out, as well as the outside to the in. So especially along this facade right here. Back over in this corner is where council chambers is. You walk down the hallway there, and then you have municipal court, and down at the end is police. So this corridor, what we're proposing is interior-wise would have wood going up the wall, wood coming across. We'd have this slot in here, and then wood coming across the ceiling of this proposed canopy that we have. And then creating a social aspect to it, and putting benches and and very nice landscaping and so forth, so people felt like this was a place they could hang out versus hanging out inside the building or whatever. So it's it's very well connected and very well embraces natural light. And then just another perspective looking from another direction. As I mentioned, over here is the entrance to the senior center. And then we do have this canopy that sort of runs all the way through, and then that's the main entrance. And that's it.
Very nice.
Mr. Hicks?
So I have a couple questions.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. This is a great opportunity for the public to see kind of how this project is progressing and to visualize maybe what it's going to look like. First question: what, if any, do you expect the asks of Planning Commission will be? So like a design review, final development plan, are there any variances? Like, kind of give us a heads up. And then the second, it's kind of related to the first, is we learned not too long ago that governmental entities were not required to follow certain sections of Gahanna's code. So the question is the city of Gahanna required to follow the city of Gahanna, section 11 of our code? Just curious about that.
Okay, can you tell me maybe what section 11 of your code is?
Planning and zoning.
Not planning
We
zone?
can probably address that, Keith. That's probably a
Okay.
question better for us.
This one's still on here. So section 11, or the brownfields argument that the school district made as far as not needing to come to planning commission and have the project reviewed. The city of Gahanna, quite frankly, is also, we could go down that same exact road. I do not believe that is not the road that we are choosing to go down through. We will come back before you folks as if this was a private development looking for design review and any variances that we would be asking for, so that you have full and open say into the process here, just as you would for any private development that would go on in the city. So Mr. Blackford will give the presentation, and then the applicant, which I believe will be Mr. Hall, will be here for question and answer period I think in the August timeframe, I think is what we're thinking.
Sorry, I thought you were done at one point, Kevin. So it was very important to us. We did have the conversation following the brownfield discussion that was had in these chambers just a few months ago, or I guess it was a year ago at this point already. But this is the people's building. This is City Hall. So it's important for us to have the public discussion, have your input on this. As I started with, you're the experts, you hear this all the time. We want to hear your input on this and to create the opportunity for the public to be part of the process.
Any ideas at this point of variances or,
I think the one that jumps out is probably parking.
okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think you'll have any pushback from, I mean, the commission's been very open to that argument for commercial buildings, so. Yeah, and again, the reason I ask is just you can kind of gauge the temperature of the planning commission, and
Yeah.
we're not surprised if you come with 20 variances
Okay.
with the application.
And, to speak on their behalf a little bit, they've been, very open that, you guys are going to be engaged in this process along the way. It's always been on the table. That's why I was like, well, what are you talking? I didn't know about the brownfield thing. So it's always been presented to me that this is part of the approval process and getting through the city.
And that's refreshing,
Yeah.
again, like the mayor said, to have public input and,
Yeah.
and to go through the steps that
Yeah.
all other developments do.
And we, our firm in general, we take on an attitude that this is the community's building. We're here to help execute it. And so that's always been something that's entrenched in the values of our firm. So just so you know that. And I think, the process speaks to that too, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Mr. Markin?
So I just pulled up Google Earth real quick. One of the things that seems to come up all the time is sidewalks. So it looks like, just looking at Google Earth, there's a sidewalk and a walking path on the east side of the street. It kind of comes up the west side of the street, and right before your building, there's a crossover to Cross Tech Center, then it crosses to the other side. I don't know if this is for Michael.
Yeah,
or-
we noticed that right away.
Yeah.
And so and I didn't point it out when I walked through here, but, if there's a bike path that's coming down, you got to go across the street, it goes around, then it comes around like this.
Yep.
We think that was originally done that way because there's a bus stop on the other side of the street. But one of the things that we worked with the city on very early on was, that's fine, leave it crossing, but we need to figure out a way to get this bike path continuous through here, because some of the things we've been talking about with this building is that it's, as you heard me mention before, it's a hub for the community. Well, it can be a trailhead basically for that bike path. So, we envision, 5K races that might be organized. You use the lobby as where you come in and you sign up, maybe open up the bathrooms and those sort of things for the runners to use and so forth, and everything, comes out of there. So that was a critical piece that we worked in right away, was to pull that bike path over to the other side, which it'll be twofold. It would be used as a sidewalk, a walking path, as well as the trail, paved trail.
Good. I think, agreeing with you, that's important. It's something
Yeah.
we try not to bend on, is let's get sidewalks, bike paths, wherever we can have them. I'm a cyclist, and bike paths are important. That's all I got, Mr. Mako.
Mr. Greenberg?
I'm just curious, and I've had some discussions about environmental aspects to the property? Has anything been looked at or finalized as far as that goes?
Environmental
Environmental, such as how the building operates?
or sustainability, you mean? I think of environmental, I think of asbestos, so that's why.
No asbestos?
Yeah. Yes, we are definitely, that's a conversation that comes up continuously throughout the process. We are in an existing building, and we do have limited funds, but we are doing best practice where it makes sense. You heard me mention that the idea of the solar arrays on top of the covered parking. We will have EV charging stations out in the front in the parking lot, and then we will probably, the roof of the existing building will be structurally upgraded, because it has to be already, because this is an essential facility from a design perspective. And it will be upgraded to the point of that it can handle the additional load of any maybe future solar arrays, and then putting the conduits in from wherever they need to go from point to point to get to the roof. So we are equipping, where it makes sense, we are bringing that into play. And then obviously, all our mechanical systems that we're putting in the building will be, high efficiency mechanical systems, and in terms of the best use for the building too.
You also, Keith, as part of the process, just because the question came up the other night, we talked about daylighting.
Yeah, and the use of daylighting. So, as I mentioned, all on the front of the building, there's a lot of light that spills into that area. That lobby during the day is probably not going to need a lot of light itself. It's going to be lit primarily through daylighting. The other thing I failed to mention too is that in today's environment, a lot of our interior finishes are already recycled materials. So most carpets are already made of recycled materials. Paint, Low-Voc paint used to be, several, many years ago, 10, 15 years ago, Low-Voc paint, it was like a hassle to use. Now it's all that's available. So, all those practices will be implemented with this building where it makes sense.
Where's the refuse gonna go as far as on the property? Dumpsters for?
Yeah, that right now will be back in this probably area right here. This is where it exists currently.
Okay.
We haven't landed there 100%. We're still looking at that. We do have a generator pad that we'll have over here because the building has to be on generated power. So, that could relocate to be part of that, or this could relocate to be up in here too. So we still need to think through that decision a little bit.
And there's gonna be a lot of employees in this building.
Yeah.
And I just remember my modern office complex where everybody was fighting over the thermostat. Is that gonna be under lock and key and controlled, or how's that work?
Well, it'll be on it'll be on a system that certain people will have access to.
Okay.
With sensors through the building. So to have individual thermostats in the room, probably not. So it'll probably be on a facilities person to monitor the temperature, and it'll be all, computer automatic,
And no space heaters.
and no space heaters.
Thank you.
No space heaters.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Mr. Hall, how are you?
I'm good.
What design phase are we in right now?
We have completed schematic design, so that's pretty much what this is. And then we are rapidly working through design development right now.
Got it.
Our target is to have DD wrapped up by the end of July, so we can validate DD pricing and everything. I'm not SD is great, but there's still a lot of, mystery to the building.
Sure.
So whatever numbers, and these guys know this, whatever numbers we get through programming and SD, unless you're way off in left field, don't get too excited. We need to take a deeper dive and identify a lot of things. So DD is a critical point for me. When we get to that and we have validation on cost, that determines how we really move forward.
Do we have like a CM or anyone doing pre-con right now?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Alfred Construction.
Awesome. So I think that's important, as you know, just getting in front of like things that are, sacred cows for the team and for the city, just in terms of prioritization.
Frankly, they've been with us since almost day one. So they sat at the table with us when we went through programming, when our square footages were doing this, and we were spitballing square footage numbers So we finally got that down and it finally started to make sense. And then we made some decisions on mechanical systems, and they were very well integrated into that because cost played into them, the systems chosen.
Sure.
And then the payback over, whatever years it would be. That all drove us to a decision in terms of how, to approach the building from that
Sure,
perspective
sure.
too.
Well, I'll say that when you started, like with the planning and even looking at this diagram, I was at first curious because of the parking. I wasn't sure what the light gray was. Being not familiar, I was like, is that dark gray, like an overbuild, like on top of what's there? So I guess to the good, I didn't realize that we were expanding that much of the existing building. And so to that effect, it was just much different. I think in my mind's eye, I had like, we're going to be doing some minor exterior kind of modifications to the existing building, existing floor plates, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess I'm pleasantly surprised with the amount of like transformation that that building would get, just in terms of the square footage and things like that. The one, as I was looking at it, just having seen it for the first time, I think that the benefit is a lot of, because of the woods or because of the treed area to the east and to the south, that really the primary, these are, to your point around, they all kind of look the same. Even so much as like I had a hard time identifying which one was going to be our building as you kind of drive through there. So I don't think it will be mistaken, given, with the types of changes that we're proposing. So I would say that from the front side, it will be it looks to be a complete transformation visually in terms of what's happening. So I think the amount of glass, without kind of seeing the renderings for the first time and just seeing like it's hard to gauge what's in plane, what's out of plane, and things like that. But I think the amount of glazing on that north side is actually going to be really beneficial, especially for the public spaces. That being on more north facing should be pretty diffuse for the most part. And so I think that's good too. I did have one question with regard to daylighting, and that is there, because a lot of the staff spaces, because a lot of the interior spaces towards, I guess, what would be the south and the east, are they, I'm not sure what the windows look like on the back of that building, but just in terms of like, when I look at this building and I go upstairs or I go on the first floor, one thing I'm critical of as an architect is that this feels like a really hermetically sealed box, in terms of natural light, things that we see like in workplace, where it's just, it feels really dark. So is there opportunity for, whether it's borrowed light or direct, glazing on the south and east?
Yeah, so what we really focused on, as you picked up on, like this, for all intents and purposes, this whole, and I'm on the third floor because this is the best one to make, to explain with. So this whole wall has been transformed into complete curtain wall. So it's all glass. So all this red area out in here really will take on a lot of natural light. As you get into these office spaces at the entryways and so forth, those will not be solid doors. Those will be glass doors with glass side lights, and and even on the outside walls where we have offices all lined up. So light will come in from the windows that we currently have and spill into these centralized areas. Is it where we would like it to be? Probably not, but we are also dealing with existing construction, and we are dealing with limitations with budget. So the idea of really focusing our efforts are, really on this front facade and putting everything into that, and essentially not touching the back of the building. We're going to recap the parking lot. We'll redo some landscaping back there, but it's really some nip and tuck and just kind of, make it look, spruce it up a little bit. That's just where we are. We can't just drop the entire facade and put a whole new facade on the building.
Sure. No, I definitely understand. I just didn't know what types of windows we had on the backside, or I guess on the back.
They're like punched openings that are, I want to say they're probably at least 5 foot by 5 foot.
Okay.
So there's some pretty decent light that comes in there. But how does that really transfer itself from here and really get into here? You will visually connect to it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the extent of it.
Got it. Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question on that, since I'm not an architect? On the front side, are you taking the front wall off
Pretty much,
to open it up to the light?
Yeah.
pretty much.
So the back stays the same, but the front, what we see as the front of the building now gets
That's gone.
removed and opened?
Yes, pretty much.
And I would expect too on that curtain wall, and it seems, I know renderings aren't always truthful, but, typically like when you see large expanses of glass glazed wall on office parks, if you drive on 270 or, wherever that is, they tend to be kind of
They have
the,
spandrel panels in
yeah,
them.
super reflective and,
Yeah.
90s looking.
Yeah.
So I would expect that whatever we choose
Yeah.
from curtain wall side, that glazing is going to have a huge amount of reflectivity. There's probably a low E coating or something
Right,
like that.
all that stuff, yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things here, and I didn't do a very good job explaining this earlier, on the second floor, this you're standing here and you're looking down into the lobby. So essentially, when you're standing at this edge, you're looking out that window and looking direct north. And then even this walkway here that comes along, the curtain wall, the glass wall is out on that edge right there. You see that line?
Yeah.
And you might see a small gap in there. There's a slot that runs all the way down the side of this, that this walkway is almost floating through there. And that's intentional with bringing in, the natural light, bringing the inside in, the outside in,
Cool. One thought that I had, kind of looking at this side, I guess the front side of the building was, so we have three major entities in the project, right? We have police, we have public, city staff, and then we have the senior center. And I think one thing to be conscientious of is what identity looks like for each of those three entries. So for someone coming to the building for the first time, how do they know where to go? And it's not to say that we need to make
Different.
giant signage or anything for each of those pieces, but at least to say that I have a way, there may be some linkage to the form making, to the wayfinding, et cetera.
Yeah, so you can start to see it in the rendering here. It's a little washed out. So this says senior center on it. There is a sign that would be on that wall. We would have the same element over here with police. And then we really haven't come up with any, we've been talking about this. We just haven't solved it yet.
Yeah.
But I think this would be like City of Gahanna. So it would be highlighted with signage. And then as you come into the site, there is a major sign piece right here with the flagpoles and so forth too.
Great. I had one other comment. Oh, could you go back to the first floor? So I think one hurdle that at least visually we may have to get over. So I'm looking at council chambers and just proximity to entry. And I'm sure you all talked a lot about it through programming and stacking and there's a reason it's on the first floor, obviously. And so floor to floor in that location, is it, you said?
It's a story and a half.
It's story and a half.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it's like, this is pretty much a two-story volume in here.
Yeah,
So this would be a large volume space, not too much unlike what you see here. And then even along the back of it, we have almost a clear story, framed into the building right here that will allow natural light to come into the council chambers itself.
got it. And the reason it gave me just a little bit of pause, and I'm actually curious from your all standpoint, when you come into this building, it's a long way to get to council chambers. And there's good reason for that, right? In terms of security checkpoints, relatively speaking, right? So this is very much front and center when you come in. And was that intentional?
Yes.
In terms of
So
visibility?
the reality is this layout is a security issue because you're bringing the public deeper into your
Into the building.
and there's no checkpoint up front. So you really want to keep that activity up front. It's easier for people in charge of security to sort of monitor what's going on. And from a public perspective, we've really, outside of that dark red and even in the green and even the yellow, the public can't get beyond that perimeter, with the exception of maybe walking down and going into the senior center, obviously.
Got
But
it.
they can't get in here and get to the elevator core. They can't get back into these, where the detention center is for the prisoners with police and so forth. So this was very intentional to pull council chambers up, have it off the lobby. So when they come in the building, they're only in a little part of the building.
Yeah, makes a lot of
It
sense.
can
in
be
terms of
monitored.
control. Yep.
And Chief, is just as a note, Chief Spence has been with us each and every step, making sure that from their perspective, the police department's perspective, that security, if there was an event or an incident inside of that particular room, inside of Mayor's Court, inside of the main lobby, that they have proper sight lines and those types of things to neutralize whatever might be coming in. We did flirt a little bit with the orientation of council chambers. Council chambers actually faces north. Council had a lot of different discussions about potentially rotating it 90 degrees, so it was more open to the main lobby. But then that limited the security, where you guys now have two doors. If something was to happen, you guys can go into a secure part of the building. We really wanted to manage and maintain that as well. So if there was an incident in the main portion of the building, whether it be you folks or council, would be able to get into that lighter pink corridor and then into the secure space of the building, while whatever was going on out front was minimized the impact to the rest of the facility itself.
And is that wall on the north side of chambers and east, is that glazed?
It has some glazing in it, yes.
Okay.
And we have some glazing in it here, yes. Now, that was part of a security feature, too. We had a lot of discussions. Do we do a fishbowl so everybody can see in there?
Yeah.
Or what? And so we didn't want the fishbowl, but we wanted to have sight lines into it. So we sort of did, I would call it 50% glass, 50% wall.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, like I said, it was definitely, like, in terms of the overall aesthetic of the building, and it was unexpected, pleasantly, I think, in terms of transformation. So I would say, like, I think your note around civic presence and materiality, it looks like we're kind of leveraging two major materials, and is it stone or glass? I would say we can get a lot out of masonry too. I don't,
Well, part of that was that we have this existing brick
Yeah.
that we have to, it's there.
Yeah.
We can't just like shut off, and you don't want to paint it, because then that's a maintenance issue
Yep.
long-term and everything. So to bring another brick into the building, we had internal discussions about that, and that really wasn't going anywhere with us. And then
Yeah.
we do a lot of government facilities, and stone is a very big part of that. A lot of, fortunately and unfortunately, but a lot of base, middle, top type of approach. We try to contemporize that where we possibly can. We had an opportunity here with sort of doing the bookends with the stone, and then allowing that middle area to be a lot of glass, a lot of curtain wall, and really send this message of transparency. And felt like that was a strong, very strong message to send with the design. And as you noted, it is a complete transformation of what's there. There's not another building in that area that even looks like this. So as residents come to the building, as other users may come to the building, it's going to have its own unique identity, and hopefully, as I keep saying, serves as that hub for the city of Gahanna and for the community.
Okay. Thanks. I think those are my questions.
I have a few questions, nothing earth-shattering. So you said 136,000 is going to be the square footage.
Yeah, it's rough. I would give you a range right now, 136 to 138. So, yes.
And we believe that's going to be adequate for this 50-year vision?
Yeah, and there's some space in there that's not occupied, so there's growth. There's growth opportunities in there. We've had a lot of discussion about that throughout the process, too, and have gotten comfortable with where we are currently.
Okay. And did I see on the site plan there's going to be 3 points of access from Tech Center Drive?
Yes,
Is that correct?
you did.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about parking. What's the net loss gain with what it is today and what you're proposing?
So I don't have those exact, I can tell you what's there now in this plan.
Ballpark?
Yeah. What's there now in plan is the police secured parking down in the lower left-hand corner has 61 total, and 34 of those are covered. The administration secured parking, which is over here to the right of the plan, has 156 total, with 18 covered. And then above that, another part of that lot has 34 spaces. And then the public parking is 123 total. And then that gives you a total of 374 spaces across the entire lot. I think the existing lot was pushing about 400, maybe a little over 400.
It was closer to, I think it was actually,
Was it-
it's about 475,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, so it's about
Yeah.
100.
Yeah, and it was overparked. That was,
Right,
that's a lot of parking. There's really no reason to have that much parking there.
right. And again,
So-
you're comfortable with the amount of parking that's being proposed? You're comfortable with that number?
Yeah, and we've gone back and forth with them. It's, if there was a day when council chambers was full with an event and the multi-use room was full with an event at noon and, all the workers were in the building, that could be problematic. And we've talked about that. And we've
Okay.
said that is probably unlikely anyway. If that became an issue, then they would look at alternative parking plans to support that. So the senior center during the hours of between 8 and 5 will function as a senior center, so there will not be any heightened parking associated with the multi-use room. The council chambers obviously is a municipal court, but there's plenty of parking out in front to support municipal court. So there would be a, continuation of cars coming in and out, and, in the lot there is sufficient to support it. I think the important thing to really focus on is there enough for police? And we've got that comfort level with them. Is there enough for city admin? And we've gotten them comfortable with that. I think the other aspects is as the use of the building might ramp up or ramp down, there's enough parking in surrounding lots that would only occur after hours, and I think people would just naturally go park in those lots there.
Okay.
Just as one point of reference here on this particular site, I think there's about 130 parking spots between here and then the lot that's over in front of the senior center. So that's easily triple of what will be over in this particular facility.
Okay, very good. Getting back to another, access question. So assuming that most of the residents, when they eventually come here, are going to be coming down from Morrison, then turn on Tech Center, what type of signage, roadway signage, are you proposing?
So that's something we've had discussions about is, what happens up at that intersection? That is a key point, that whether it gets addressed through this project or addressed through a future project, which, the city almost sort of needs to own that intersection to some extent. There will be signage out there saying City Hall this way.
Exactly.
But I like to think of, there's probably an elevated approach to whatever that is. Whether it's arches or, something in the pavement or something, whatever. City Gahanna tends to heighten major intersections or major points with their own unique branding, and I think that's an opportunity up there to do that.
Getting back to the question on sustainability and whatnot, is this going to be a LEED certified building?
It will not be a LEED certified building. The beauty, we will be very close. The beauty of today's environment is the building code, since LEED, and you know this, since LEED was put in front of us, the building code has really caught up to what LEED is all about. There are to get LEED certified, you do have to go to higher standards that aren't in the code, but the code gets you, designing to the building code gets you pretty darn close before you have to start adding bike racks or put in a more efficient system or those sort of things. And then I would like to highlight the fact that you could have gone on this site and torn the building down and rebuilt a building. But we've decided to leave the building, re-image it, and project it out 50 years. So, the idea behind reducing carbon footprint lives in this building, and will live in it for a long time to come.
Okay. Another question, you mentioned the police have been very involved with this, fire department as well?
The fire department?
Yes.
From what perspective? They're not in the building.
Well, I realize that, but just from a safety standpoint, they can
They
access
will
everything?
be.
and-
As we go through our approval processes and everything, they will be involved, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Final question, getting back to the police, you said that there is a firing range in the building?
Yeah.
What type of fire suppression are you proposing there? Sprinklers, anything?
Yeah, the whole building will be suppressed. And then the firing range will have its own HVAC system on it to exhaust out the lead, the fumes that come from that. And then in this case, the firing range will serve as our storm shelter for the building. Buildings of this nature, it's an essential facility, are required to have a higher structural design to them, and that's what I mentioned earlier. We're going to have to get in, we're going to have to reinforce some of the existing structure in the existing building. But we are also required, because it is an essential facility, to provide a storm shelter in it for the occupants of the building. So if an event comes up, the mayor, everybody else would go down to essentially the gun range, because that's where the storm shelter is being planned for, and would remain down there until the storm passed, and then be able to come out and assess the situation and get back up online, hopefully.
Okay.
So, and the whole building will be suppressed. The whole building is, designed to meet, current building codes and all that stuff.
And final question, budgetary-wise, we're good with what was budgeted for the project?
We will know, we're in the range. Yeah, we will know, we'll have a better answer for that when we get to the end of DD.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
The market's very volatile and all that good stuff, so.
No parking place for Matt.
Gotta go where you can, right? Any other questions from the commission?
I think it was a great presentation. Thank you.
It's good to see.
Yep, just on a personal note, I think this is great. In my daily life, I work for a municipality, and it's gonna be a lot of jealousy. Just put it that way.
Yeah.
A lot of
Well,
jealousy.
We'll come talk to you. So,
All right. Anything else from any?
I actually do have a question. What happens to this building?
We don't know that yet. We have not had that conversation with council. No, there's obviously multiple options we could explore. At one point, I know we had conversations with the school board about temporarily using this, because they will have a gap period of time from the time they tear down their administration building
Yep.
until their new space is ready. But that would be a temporary. There is great interest in development as a redevelopment parcel. And we've even looked at it, is this a potential site for a community rec center? We don't know if it's big enough for that, but trying to evaluate all the potential options it could be is still something we're working through. So that, again, also needs to be a discussion we have with council.
Got it. Thank you, Lori.
All right, hear nothing else, I'll move to adjourn.